Stephanie White grabbing Caitlin Clark by the arm. Caitlin Clark saying, "Get your hands off me." Brianne January grabbing Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark saying, "Get your hands off me." Folks, do you know what I see when I look at the Indiana Fever? I see the Mean Girls.
Yo, stop. Before you press play on anything else today, I need you to look at what you just watched. Look at it. That is Caitlin Clark, the most famous basketball player on planet Earth right now. The woman who single-handedly dragged women's basketball to a level nobody in this league ever reached before her. And she is sitting on a bench in Indiana getting into it with her coaches. Again, not once, twice, in the same game. What is going on over there at the Indiana Fever? I'm Dre Fiver, this is Street Hoops, and today we are going all the way in because the drama inside that Fever organization is starting to boil over, and somebody has to call it what it is. Let's set the scene. May 17th, 2026. Indiana Fever against the Seattle Storm. The Fever win 89-78. Clark drops 21 points and 10 assists. She set a new WNBA record for the most career games with at least 20 points and 10 assists, surpassing the previous record held by Courtney Vandersloot. A historic night, right? Another chapter in the Caitlin Clark legacy. So you'd think the vibe on the bench is great, yeah? You'd think everybody is locked in, vibing, playing together, riding the wave? Wrong. Instead, a fan's phone captures Caitlin Clark in what looks like a straight-up argument with assistant coach Brianne January on the bench. And that's not all. As the conversation between the two intensified, Clark visibly disagreed and responded emotionally, and then got up and moved to another seat. Moving to another seat, people. She literally relocated. She didn't want to be near the woman coaching her. That is a statement whether you want it to be or not. Now look, I'm going to give you the full picture, because that's what we do on Street Hoops. We don't just yell. We break it down. According to multiple reports, the interaction appeared to begin with January walking Clark through a defensive sequence, after which Clark visibly disagreed and responded emotionally from the bench. So January is trying to coach her, running through defensive assignments, trying to explain a coverage. That is literally her job. Brianne January is the Fever's main defensive coach, and she is a former WNBA champion and all-star. She has receipts. She earned her place on that staff. But something about what January said to Caitlin Clark in that moment did not sit right with number 22. And Clark, who has never in her life been the type to just sit quietly and nod, made sure everybody in the building knew it. And here is the part that takes the whole thing to another level. That same night, Clark also had a separate disagreement earlier in the game with head coach Stephanie White. This one over positioning and defensive coverage. Separate. Disagreement with the head coach and the assistant coach. On the same night, in a game they won. Dre's opinion? You do not have two separate on-bench blowups with your coaching staff in one game if everything behind the scenes is cool. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. Now let's zoom out from that one game, because this isn't new. This is a continuing story. And the most recent chapter before the Storm game was written just 2 days earlier, Friday night, May 15th. Indiana hosts the Washington Mystics. It goes to overtime. Clark led a fourth-quarter comeback for the ages, hitting 5 three-pointers and scoring 17 of the team's 31 points in that final period to erase a 9-point deficit and force overtime. 17 points in the fourth quarter. 5 threes, when it mattered most. The woman put the whole squad on her back and dragged them back from the dead. She finished with 32 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. And it still wasn't enough. The Fever fell 104-102. And then, Stephanie White walked to the podium, and here is where it gets ugly. After that performance, a reporter asked White specifically about Clark leading that fourth-quarter surge. The question was specific. It was direct. It was about Caitlin Clark, and White didn't directly acknowledge her star player. She chose to talk about the team instead. She didn't say her name. She didn't look at the camera and say Caitlin Clark is the best player in this league and she just went to war for us. She talked around it, and the internet did not let that slide. Fans flooded social media immediately. She just refuses to give Caitlin any credit, one wrote. Why must she always take a question specifically about Clark and redirect it elsewhere? It's pathological at this point, another said. Pathological, that is a strong word. But I'm not going to lie to you. I understand why people are saying it. Because this is not the first time. This is a pattern. After close losses, after big performances, after moments when the obvious thing, The easy thing, the natural thing, would be to just say, Caitlin Clark is unbelievable. She gave us everything tonight. One fan put it bluntly. She's trying to answer like Greg Popovich, but she coaches like Doc Rivers. I'm not going to say that's wrong. Dre's personal opinion? I've watched coaches at every level of basketball. Great coaches celebrate their best players. Pop celebrated Duncan. Phil Jackson let Kobe and Shaq shine. Pat Riley built franchises around stars. A coach who can't give a direct, genuine, heartfelt answer about her own franchise player's historic fourth quarter after the most specific question of the press conference is a coach operating with some kind of agenda. Whether that's ego, whether that's philosophy, whether that's something deeper, I don't know. But I know what it looks like from the outside. And it's not just the press conferences. The body language on that bench tells a story too. You've seen the clips circulating. Clark hits a three, one of her patented crowd-igniting step-back threes, gets the crowd going absolutely crazy, starts feeding off that energy, and then turns and gives the head coach the most reluctant, most unenthusiastic high five you have ever seen in your life. Like she's clocking in at a job she's tired of. Quick touch, turn, move, gone. You can feel the frost through a phone screen. You don't do that with someone you're genuinely vibing with. You don't do that with a coach you trust and respect and believe in. That is a player managing a relationship, not celebrating with a colleague. And now, let's bring Brianne January fully into the picture, because her role in all of this has been overlooked. January is not a background character. She is a former WNBA champion. She handles the Fever's defensive coaching responsibilities. And Clark's relationship with her has been described as cordial most of the time. Clark even reposted January's content on her Instagram story earlier this year, cracking jokes about January running kids through defensive drills in London. So these two do not hate each other. There is history there. There is mutual respect, but there is clearly also friction. And that friction, competitive, emotional, high-stakes friction, just went extremely public. WNBA analyst Rachel DeMita weighed in on the situation on her podcast this week, and to her credit, she tried to pump the brakes. She called the incident a regular occurrence in professional sports and pointed to similar moments between high-profile players and coaches across the league. It's inevitable to happen at some point in an athlete's career that they have a misunderstanding or a heated exchange with the coach, DeMita said. Okay, fair. I hear Rachel. Sideline arguments happen. I've seen Patrick Mahomes go at it on the sideline. I've seen Steph Curry get into it with the bench. Competition is emotional. The greatest competitors on the planet don't just sit there and take everything with a smile. I get it. But here's my issue. DeMita herself acknowledged the broader context directly. She said she is fully aware that there is a microscope right now on the Indiana Fever's coaching staff because a lot of fans aren't happy with how the first few games of the season have gone. And she went further, pointing to White's press conference behavior as actively fueling the fire, noting that fans are not happy about Coach Stephanie White's press conference where she was asked about Caitlin Clark and then didn't talk about her. So even the people defending the situation are acknowledging that there is a situation. That's telling. When your apologists have to say, well, I know people are unhappy, before they explain why you're fine. You are not fine. And this goes back further than this week. Let's rewind to September 2025. Fever playoffs, Clark is injured and watching from the bench. During the team's first-round series against the Atlanta Dream, a video went viral showing both Clark and Sophie Cunningham completely disregarding Brianne January as she motioned for them to take a seat and stop antagonizing the referees. Multiple attempts. January kept trying. Clark and Cunningham kept going. Eventually, January got them seated, but that didn't stop them from continuing to berate the officials. Now, in that moment, a lot of Clark fans thought it was hilarious. Bench mob energy. Fierce competitor even while injured. I get it. But you've got to see the full picture. That is a WNBA champion being ignored by the players she is trying to coach. Multiple times, in front of a national audience. That does not build great relationships. That plants seeds. And some of those seeds are now sprouting on the bench during a regular season win over the Seattle Storm in May 2026. Fans had very strong things to say about that playoff clip at the time. That assistant coach is a WNBA icon and WNBA champion. I cannot imagine how hard it is for her to keep it together dealing with those two. Other people said Clark was just being competitive. Both things can be true. Clark's fire is what makes her great. But that same fire, unchecked, mismanaged, directed at the wrong people in the wrong moments, that fire becomes a problem. And right now, that fire is being directed very visibly at the coaching staff of the Indiana Fever. Here's the thing about Caitlin Clark's situation that nobody is being fully honest about. She is operating in a fundamentally impossible environment. Multiple reporters and analysts have questioned why Clark spent stretches playing off the ball during her time under White, instead of functioning as the full-time offensive initiator, especially given her historic shooting range and playmaking ability. Fans criticized the rotations, the substitution patterns, and what they saw as an unwillingness to fully center the offense around the most talented player on the roster. That debate, the off-ball versus on-ball debate, has been raging since White arrived, and it has never been resolved. And every time it resurfaces, it creates another fault line between the Clark camp and the coaching staff. Clark herself showed her frustration with the topic during team practice this season. When reporters came at her with the same question, again, she snapped back, "You guys' two favorite questions, what I wear to practice and me playing off-ball basketball." Snarky. That means she is tired of the conversation. That means internally this subject has been discussed and debated and not resolved to her satisfaction. And she does not hide how she feels. Never has. That is part of what makes her appointment television. Let's talk about Stephanie White getting the Team USA assistant coaching gig, because this lit the internet on fire, and it's important context for where this relationship stands. USA Basketball officially announced that White will serve as an assistant coach for Team USA at the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup in Berlin, Germany, running from September 4th through the 13th. White joins a staff led by head coach Kara Lawson, alongside Natalie Nikasi of the Golden State Valkyries and Nate Tibbetts of the Phoenix Mercury. On paper, that is a big deal. That is a career milestone. And Caitlin Clark herself showed public support for White, sharing the Fever's congratulatory Instagram post on her own story. So Clark publicly backed it. I'll give credit where it's due. But among the fan base, completely different story. The reaction from the Fever's fan base, particularly the massive Caitlin Clark following that, has made up a significant portion of the WNBA's entire audience over the last 2 seasons, was immediate and brutal. Comments pouring in from every direction. Be ready to go down in history as the one who killed the league. Worst WNBA coach in history. When are you going to realize the reason for terrible ticket sales is Stephanie White? These are not isolated opinions. These are thousands of people, day after day, watch after watch, game after game, arriving at the same conclusion, that this coaching staff does not serve Caitlin Clark well. Now, and I have to be fair here, White led the Fever to a 24-20 campaign in 2025, marking the most regular season wins in franchise history. Indiana also won the WNBA Commissioner's Cup and made it to the semifinals, all of that achieved without Clark for the majority of the season. Let that land. The Fever won more games than they ever have in franchise history, without their franchise player, under Stephanie White. You cannot take that away from her. She is a good coach. She won Coach of the Year for a reason. But here's Dre's truth. Being a good coach and being the right coach for Caitlin Clark are two completely different questions. You can respect someone's resume and still ask whether the fit is actually working. Phil Jackson won championships. Doesn't mean he's the right coach for every player on earth. The question isn't whether Stephanie White can coach basketball. The question is whether this specific dynamic between this specific coach and this specific once-in-a-generation talent is producing the results and the harmony the Indiana Fever needs to win a championship. And based on what we are watching play out in real time, the bench arguments, the cold high fives, the press conference non-answers, the snarky media exchanges, the answer to that question is becoming uncomfortably clear. Here's what I find genuinely fascinating about this whole situation. It is not simple. It would be easy to come on here and say, fire Stephanie White. Caitlin Clark hates her. This is a disaster team has done. It's not that clean, because look, during Indiana's dominant win over Las Vegas in the summer of 2025, Stephanie White drew a technical foul for going at the refs, and Caitlin Clark absolutely lost it on the bench, completely lit up with a huge reaction, loving every second of it, giggling, fired up, proud of her coach for having that dog in her. That is not the reaction of someone who despises her head coach. That is someone who in moments genuinely feels something for the person standing next to her. There is warmth there. There are real moments. But warmth and winning aren't the same thing. Good vibes and championship runs aren't the same thing. And the Fever are a team that has been built, marketed, financed, and hyped as a potential WNBA title contender the moment Clark is healthy. She is healthy now. The 2026 season is here, and the early results are not inspiring confidence. Indiana dropped its season opener to the Dallas Wings 107-104, with Clark contributing 20 points, including the basket that gave her 1,000 career WNBA points. A milestone in a loss. That sentence should not exist, The Fever dropped to 1-2 after their first 3 games. Not exactly championship momentum. And beneath the surface, the tension is visible. In the bench clips, in the press conference moments, in the way Clark fires off a 3 and gives a perfunctory dap to the coaching staff, in the way sideline debates go viral every few weeks. Something is not right in Indiana, and pretending otherwise does not help Caitlin Clark, does not help the Fever, and does not help the WNBA. Now let me tell you what I think this actually is at its core, because I do not believe this is some personal vendetta. I don't think Stephanie White wakes up every morning trying to make Caitlin Clark's life harder. What I think this is a fundamental, ongoing, unresolved philosophical disagreement about how to use the most talented and marketable player in the league. Stephanie White is a system coach. She believes in the collective. She believes in defense-first basketball. She believes in spreading responsibility. And Caitlin Clark is at her absolute best, a player who should have the ball in her hands every single meaningful possession of every single close game. Those two philosophies are not the same, and no amount of good intentions or mutual respect fixes that if they cannot find common ground. Some corners of the sports media world have suggested this tension reflects a deeper issue, that certain parts of the league have struggled to fully embrace what Caitlin Clark means to women's basketball. Whether that charge is fair or unfair is a whole separate conversation. What is absolutely true is that when your best player and your coaching staff are going at it multiple times per game, in public, on video, going viral every 72 hours, there is a management and communication problem that needs to be solved urgently, not eventually. Now, here's the other layer that nobody is fully connecting. Just 2 months ago, White and Clark were working together in Puerto Rico during the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament. Clark led Team USA to a 5-0 record, averaging 11.6 points and a tournament-high 6.4 assists per game, and was named tournament MVP. White was on the sidelines as an assistant coach on that same staff. They won. Together, Clark was magnificent. White helped run the operation. So the relationship is not toxic. It's complicated. It's a coach-player dynamic where the expectations, the pressure, the public scrutiny, and the philosophical differences all collide under the brightest spotlight in women's sports. And that spotlight, let's be honest, is entirely because of Caitlin Clark. The WNBA's television ratings, attendance booms, and cultural explosion did not happen because of the Indiana Fever organization. They happened because of the woman wearing number 22. Every camera angle, every viral moment, every trending hashtag, Caitlin Clark is the engine. And when you are the engine and you feel like the people around you are not maximizing what you can do, that frustration does not just stay inside you, it leaks out. On the bench, in press conferences, in the way you move your feet after hitting a big shot. The internet is calling it mean girls energy. Social media is calling it jealousy. Some corners of the sports world are calling it something deeper. Dre's take? I think the simplest explanation is the most accurate. This is a franchise that has not fully committed to what it means to build around a once-in-a-generation player. They have not made the organizational decision to say, out loud, structurally, philosophically, Caitlin Clark runs this team, and everything else is built to support her. Until that decision is made loudly and visibly, the tension on that bench will keep leaking onto fan phones and exploding across the internet every single week. The Fever have the most valuable asset in women's basketball. They have a healthy Caitlin Clark in her 3rd WNBA season, fully recovered, hungry, motivated, and building on a historic statistical foundation. She is already the fastest player in WNBA history to record 1,000 career points, 250 rebounds, and 250 assists. That is not a good player. That is a player for the history books. And right now, that player is moving to a different seat on the bench in the middle of a game because she and her defensive coach cannot get on the same page. Something has to give. Either the communication gets dramatically better, real honest conversations behind closed doors, not staged press conference diplomacy, or this drama keeps escalating. I'm not here to tell Caitlin Clark to demand a trade. I'm not here to call for Stephanie White to be fired. I'm here to call it like I see it. This dynamic is not sustainable at championship level. You do not win rings when your star is publicly beefing with the bench twice a game. You just don't. So here's what I'm watching for over the next 30 days. Does White start publicly celebrating Clark at the podium? Does the off-ball experiment get quietly abandoned? Does Clark's body language around the coaching staff start to warm up? Or does this thing escalate further? More clips, more headlines, more viral moments, until one of the two parties blinks? The WNBA is appointment television right now, and a big reason for that is because nobody knows what is going to happen next inside the Indiana Fever. That might be entertaining for street hoops. It is not great for a team trying to win a championship. The spotlight is on Indiana, the clock is ticking, and Caitlin Clark is too good, too competitive, and too important to this entire sport to waste another season in dysfunction. Figure it out, Indiana. Figure it out before this whole thing burns down in the middle of a season that was supposed to be the one. I'm Dre Fiver, that's the word on the street, and Street Hoops never lies to you. Now look, if you made it this far, you already know the deal. Smash that like button right now, not later. Now, if this video hit different, if you learned something, if you felt something, that like button is how you tell the algorithm that Street Hoops is worth watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White situation gets resolved? Or does it explode before the All-Star break? Are you Team Clark? Or are you defending the coaching staff? I want your hottest takes down there. No filter, no cap. Just give me the real ones. And if you are not subscribed to Street Hoops yet, what are you doing with your life? Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because when this Indiana Fever story pops off, and it will pop off, you want to be here when it does. Dre Fiver, Street Hoops. See you next time.